Every country on Earth is in debt. Not some, not most, every single one. The United States now carries more than $38 trillion in obligations, the highest level in its history. Europe holds tens of trillions. Japan's debt exceeds the size of its entire economy. Even countries rich in oil, exports, or manufacturing owe enormous sums. So here's the question few people ever stop to ask. If everyone owes money, who is actually owed? This is WealthTime Archive, where money, power, and history collide, and where simple answers rarely survive. Debt is usually framed as a problem, a burden, a future crisis waiting to explode. But in reality, debt is something far more fundamental. It is the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every financial crash, every economic boom and bailout rests on an invisible scaffolding of promises. And when you follow those promises far enough, something uncomfortable appears. The world does not owe money to a single ruler or nation. It owes money to itself. But that doesn't mean the system is fair. To understand how humanity ended up buried under more than $315 trillion in total debt, nearly 3 times the size of global economic output, we need to rewind history. Long before digital payments, long before credit cards, long before central banks dominated finance, national debt was born in war. In the late 17th century, England was fighting France and running out of gold. The treasury was empty. Raising taxes further risked rebellion. So the government made a radical move. Instead of collecting money it already had, it borrowed money it didn't. Merchants were offered a deal. Finance the state now and receive guaranteed interest forever, backed by future taxes. To manage this arrangement, a new institution was created, the Bank of England. For the first time, a government could spend money it did not yet possess, and lenders received something revolutionary, a promise that could be traded, sold, inherited, and treated as wealth. That promise became the government bond. Other powers quickly followed. France adopted the model. The Dutch refined it. The newly independent United States used it to fund revolution and expansion. Debt stopped being a weakness. It became proof of credibility. Empires once conquered land to seize gold. Now they issued bonds to extract interest. Power shifted from the battlefield to the balance sheet. Fast forward to today, and debt has become the world's most important product. Global borrowing grows by trillions every year. Every government owes, every bank lends, every citizen participates through taxes, pensions, insurance, and savings. Everyone is both debtor and creditor. So who's holding the other end? Let's start with the United States, because its debt isn't just national, it's global. A large portion of American debt is publicly held, but most of it is owned domestically by banks, pension funds, insurance funds, and the Federal Reserve itself. Only a fraction sits overseas. Japan holds the largest foreign share. China holds far less than popular headlines suggest. So when people say America is owned by China, they misunderstand the system. The reality is more circular. America largely owes money to itself. The Treasury issues bonds, institutions buy them, the central bank often purchases them using newly created money. Taxes then pay interest that flows straight back into investment portfolios and retirement accounts. The debt is real, but the creditor is largely the same system. And this circular structure isn't unique. Japan lends to the United States. The United States supports Europe. Europe finances developing nations. Developing nations recycle reserves back into Western bonds. Every country holds someone else's IOU. It's a planetary loop of promises, a system that only survives as long as confidence remains intact. But governments are not the most powerful players here. The real power lies in the markets. Pension funds, hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks managing tens of trillions in assets. They decide who can borrow cheaply and who must pay a premium just to survive. When confidence fades, currencies collapse, governments fall, entire economies are rewritten overnight. At the center of this system stands the modern authority, the central bank. Central banks do not simply manage debt, they create it. Every dollar, euro, or yen enters circulation as a liability somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every bill carries an invisible promise. For decades, this system has survived on belief. As long as investors trust that governments will keep paying interest, even if the debt is never repaid, the machine keeps running. But history shows what happens when belief breaks. Greece learned it during the European debt crisis. Argentina learned it again and again. Sri Lanka learned it when imports stopped and politics collapsed. When the system fails, creditors stop being abstract. They become institutions, agencies, bondholders with real power. And yet, after every collapse, the logic returns. Old debts are replaced with new debts. Defaults are renamed restructurings. The machine resets. Because modern sovereign debt is designed to not be eliminated, it is designed to be rolled forward forever. Governments do not plan to repay their debt. They plan to refinance it endlessly. Debt becomes a subscription. Interest becomes the price of stability. The United States will never clear its balance. Japan has operated this way for decades. Investors are not waiting to be paid back. They are waiting for continuation. Because government debt is the foundation of global finance. Banks rely on it as collateral. Pension funds depend on its safety. Central banks treat it as money itself. If governments suddenly paid off all their debt, the system would collapse. So they don't. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism, steady, rhythmic, necessary. That's why promises to eliminate national debt are political theater. The real goal is to keep it believable. Because once trust disappears, numbers stop mattering. And here's the final truth. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that's half true. Interest flows upward, from workers and taxpayers to institutions and asset holders. Debt is not just a relationship between countries. It is a relationship between classes. Those who own debt are rewarded. Those who pay it are drained. At the top of this system, there is no single villain. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It is the structure itself, and everyone inside it. Debt has become money. Promises have become assets. Stability depends entirely on trust. But trust is fragile, and when it breaks, the illusion ends. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. History has the answers.